Morning. I'm Louis Blaze, and I'm representing the Fairhope Library. I am going to be interviewing Dr. Sheldon Kushner. This interview is being conducted for the Fairhope Library Veterans Oral History Collection. Good afternoon, Doctor. How are you today, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, and you?
Good. Very, very well, sir. Just a few biological details here. Where were you living when you joined the military?
When I joined the military, I was in Birmingham in med school, University of Alabama School of Medicine.
And you were in med school when you joined?
That's when my commitment kind of started. That's when I made my commitment. It was pretty much a known fact that when you finished med school, you were going to have to go into the military one way or the other.
You drafted, or did you join?
I was essentially drafted because you had to commit, and you could go in one of three ways. You could go in after you finished your internship, which was 1 year after you graduated from medical school, or you could specialize and you could go in after 1 year of specialty training. Or the third thing you could do is you could go in after full specialty training. And we talk about it as an option. It wasn't an option. The government told you which one of those plans you were going to be on.
Yeah, okay.
And I was told that I would be on the first one.
Did you go to primary and secondary school in Birmingham? Are you from Birmingham?
No, I'm from Montgomery.
You're from Montgomery?
Yeah. I went to...
So you went to school in Montgomery, and then where'd you go to undergraduate school?
University of Alabama.
You went to University of Alabama. Okay, and then went on right into med school, or did you work or anything?
Went right on into med school.
Right into med school. So, did you have family? Were you married at the time, or?
I got married about 2 months, maybe 3 months before I went to Vietnam.
Oh, okay. So, and what branch of the service did you enter?
I entered the Air Force.
Air Force. Yeah. Did you have any choice, or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we had choice in those days. I'm not sure why I selected the Air Force.
Yeah.
I was in Air Force ROTC in undergraduate school for 2 years, but that really had nothing to do with it. For some reason I selected the Air Force. I don't know why.
Where did you go after you got drafted?
Well, after I actually went into active duty.
Active duty, yes, sir.
After my time in medicine in med school and an internship, and I actually became activated I initially started at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas for basic training, which was a basic training thing for medical personnel.
Okay.
For about 2 weeks, and then I went to my permanent, it wasn't very permanent, but my permanent duty station was Vandenberg Air Force Base, California. Yeah.
Well, did you go in as an officer?
As a general medical officer, yes.
Okay, so you were a commissioned officer the whole time you was in the military. Exactly. While you were in the military, did you go to school? Did you go to any type of?
No, I took some courses. Like before I went to Vietnam, for instance, I had to go to one of the hospitals in Texas. I can't even remember which one it was. One of the military hospitals in San Antonio for a course in tropical medicine before I went to Vietnam.
Oh, really? Okay.
But in terms of any classes, no, I didn't go back to school.
Okay.
Not at that point. I did after I got back from Vietnam, but not.
Do you have any real vivid memories or about things that stand out about your basic training? Any particular people that you hung out with or kept in touch with?
Actually, yes. There were a few people that were stationed for their permanent duty station at Vandenberg along with me. So we kind of traveled from Texas to California together, and I got to know some folks that way.
Yeah. Did you drive on your own, or did the military transport?
No, military didn't transport me. Drove on my own, and a couple of other people drove on their own. We kind of went as a caravan to Vandenberg together.
Well, good deal. Let's talk about your wartime service. Where you served in Vietnam.
I did, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I had been at Vandenberg for about 3 or 4 months. Really, about 3 months. And I got my orders to Vietnam. And the order said that I was to go to Constanute Air Force Base in Saigon. I thought, well, that can't be too bad. That's the largest facility that we have. We'll probably be seeing some airmen treating cold.
What year was this?
68.
68, okay. Things are going pretty good.
They sure were.
Yeah.
In fact, I got to Vietnam just shortly after the Tet Offensive of '69, which anybody who was alive at that time remembers the Tet.
Absolutely.
And but when I got there, I discovered that I was kind of loaned out, so to speak, to the Army, because that's when I found out that I was going to be living with a U.S. Army group in the Mekong Delta, and that my job was going to be taking care of Vietnamese civilians who got caught in a crossfire. And so I was not really involved with the Air Force. I was living with Army MACV advisory team, and it consisted of a lot of different components. Like it had our medical group. It was basically a team of Army Rangers, and there was a team of Navy SEALs that lived with us.
Tough guys.
Yeah, a team of Navy Seabees. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Seabees.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They could build anything.
Battalion.
Oh, they could build anything with nothing.
Yeah.
There was a team of Forward Air Force, Forward Air. The FACS, Forward Air Control, they were instrumental. They were Air Force, and they were instrumental in putting in airstrikes for the.
How many people are we talking about when you say a team?
Probably our group in our compound, we had about 125 people.
Okay.
And there was also some civilian types. I always thought they were CIA or something. They wouldn't never tell us what they did, so I never knew.
Okay.
So we were a mixture. It was referred to as a MACV advisory team. It was under the control of the Army, pretty much. And our job was to take care of Vietnamese civilians in the Vietnamese civilian hospital in the little town of Vinh Long, in the province of Vinh Long, a town of about 35,000, maybe 40,000 people, but a province of about 485,000 people. And our job was to take care of the civilians in that province who got caught.
Okay.
I did not quite understand until I got to Vietnam what I was going to be doing. And I didn't understand it totally until I got there. When I first got to Vietnam, I spent about the first 4 or 5 days getting briefed and learning about the Vietnamese, and everybody went through that. And then I got sent to my duty station in Vinh Long, and that's when I really found out what I was going to be doing.
Now, you obviously you didn't speak Vietnamese.
No, I did not.
How did you communicate with patients if you don't speak their language at all?
We had interpreters.
Oh, you had interpreters. Okay. Yeah. Did that work out pretty good then?
It did. After a while, you kind of learn the basics, some of the basics of medically. You learned the words for pain, for are you hungry? This basic things. But the interpreters were good.
Yeah. How about the equipment you used?
The medical equipment was the bottom of the
oh, was it really?
We chronically did not have the equipment that we needed. We didn't have the equipment, nor did we have the pharmaceuticals, and so we had to be creative in what we did. We had essentially 2 antibiotics, but they were good. 2 of the best antibiotics ever, penicillin and chloromycetin. They were. Yeah. We didn't have we didn't have ventilators. We weren't able to treat chest injuries effectively because we didn't have the suction equipment to deal with that.
Did you have enough surgical skills to do it? Because you were just a young guy.
I was.
Yeah.
I had done my internship. I was one of the old rotators, a rotating internship. A little time on obstetrics, and a little time on surgery, a little time on medicine, a little time in the emergency room. And it was that time on surgery and in the emergency room that enabled me to be able to do what I had to do over there. One of the real prominent things about medical college at the University of Alabama when I was there, they really taught you how to take care of sick patients. We learned to take care of sick people. We didn't master the equations and the formulas for the pharmacy, but we knew how to diagnose and how to take care of somebody who was sick. That's what we were taught. We were given a lot of responsibility as medical students. If I had not had that type of training in Alabama, I don't know what I would have done, because when I got there, there was two other doctors were there. We had a team of 3 doctors. And
all young, like yourself?
Yes. And well, one was like me. He had done just an internship. And he and I ended up doing the surgery. Our commander was a major. We were captains. Fred was a board certified pediatrician, and he took care of the kids after we operated on them, and he was very good, but he didn't do the surgery. Mac and I did. Mac had been there for about 2 months, and when I first got there, I remember I said, what are we supposed to be doing here? He said, well, we're going to be taking care of all the sick people, the war injuries. I said, doing what? He said, surgery. I said, what kind of surgery are you talking about? He said, everything. Abdomens, blood vessels, amputations, you name it. I said, well, I don't have any training. I don't know how to do that. He said, you'll learn. I said, who will teach me that? I mean, how am I going to learn? He said, you'll teach yourself. I said, excuse me? He said, you will teach yourself how to do all this. And that's essentially what happened. I had to learn on the job. And Mac, the other guy that did surgery, we both had to, we couldn't operate together because the volume was so great that both of us needed to be involved at the same time in 2 different operating rooms. And I had to learn books with, I used to get tapes from some of the faculty members at Alabama where I trained. They said, please explain to me how to do a colectomy, a right colon. I'm having trouble. Or how do I do a vascular anastomosis on a subclavian artery? And they would send me back instructions, and I had anatomy books, and I would have, while I was operating, I'd have one of my corpsmen in there with me with the books out, and I'd say, what do they say about this? Or what did they say about, show me the pictures of, and
how'd you converse with them? Because no computers.
What, my corpsman?
Yeah, with your Alabama, when you got telephone?
Snail mail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and tapes, audio tapes.
Yeah.
So if I was having trouble with a subclavian artery repair, it would take me almost 2 weeks to get the information about, by the time I sent it and then you got it back.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was quicker, but they would instruct me how to do things. And that, and then working with Mac, we would compare notes. How were you doing this and such? And I said, I'm doing this. Well, maybe we both ought to start doing it. We would kind of get together and decide what's the best way to handle something. But we kind of set up criteria. We learned that not to do. We decided that we could not handle chest wounds. We could not open a chest. If somebody had a chest injury and they got to us, they got to the hospital from out in the rural areas, if they were able to get to us, there were fairly good chances that maybe they could survive with our conservative therapy. We would do thoracentesis in the morning and again in the evening before we left and for the night. And But we did not put in chest tubes, and we didn't have the suction equipment to do that.
So how long did you do this?
A year.
A year?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many days a week did you? How often did you work? Did you work all the time?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
You literally had no time off?
We tried to take Sunday afternoons off if we could, but we would start at about 6 o'clock in the morning operating. We'd operate till about 7 at night or so, and we were downtown Bin Long, but at night it was not secure. It was not a safe place to be. The war in the Mekong Delta was a guerrilla war, and they would come out at night, and that's when most of the so we couldn't work at night, and we did the best we could, but at night we couldn't be there. We left and went back, and the Vietnamese doctor was supposed to take care of the patients at night, but the Vietnamese doctors were very poorly trained by the French, and were not particularly interested in learning anything from the Americans. So, but that was our job, to try to advise them and teach them. They didn't care to learn anything from us.
So did you know when you went you was going to be there for a year? Did you have
that? I did know.
When you got toward the end of your year, how were you?
Scary. Oh, it's scary. The fear is when you get, what we used to say, short. The last thing you wanted to happen was to get killed 2 days before your DEROS date of departure, before your DEROS date. And so I'm telling you, we're really uptight in that last week or so.
Are these facilities pretty well protected?
What, the
from enemy, your hospital facilities and all?
No. We worked there during the day, and we had no protection to speak of, except the corpsmen, 10 or 12 corpsmen, always, they had guns with them. They had their rifles, but at night, in our compound, we were well protected by the U.S. Army Rangers that we would live with.
So you were a lot safer at night than you were during the day.
But even then, it was scary. We lived in a compound, was a old French hotel that had been taken over by the military and made into a compound. At night, there were constantly rockets coming in, and you didn't know where those things were going to hit. You just had to pray that one of them didn't have your name on it. The Rangers were
airplanes.
Oh, they're very good. The only full military group that was in the Delta was the 9th Infantry. And we would see them around some, but basically the war in the Delta, the plan was to teach the Vietnamese how to protect themselves, how to take care of themselves. And so these Rangers would go out during the day with their counterparts and to teach the Vietnamese ARVN how to fight. But at night we'd all come together as one big advisory unit. Some advising in military, some advising in medicine. Our advice in medicine was essentially do it for us. That's what we did. But there were and then the FAC pilots would live there. There was an Army airfield a couple of miles from our compound, and they flew out of there. And they would put in the airstrikes. They would direct them. They flew these O-1 bird dogs, which is essentially like a Cessna 172, and they had these rockets underneath their wings. White phosphorus. I
did not know that.
White phosphorus, and they would be given. The fact would be given. These are the coordinates that intelligence tells us. This is what we want you to hit. So they would go up, find those coordinates, and they would mark them with white phosphorus, and then the fighters would come in from wherever they come from, Canton or Saigon or wherever, and that's where they put in the airstrikes. So we had this team of, so we would come together at night. It was one advisory team.
Yeah. Well, your people that helped you, the nurses, orderly, corpsmen, were they Vietnamese or were they American?
Both. We had 10 corpsmen, 10 or 12. I think he kind of vacillated with it. They were Air Force. They were American, and they were good. They were wonderful. Those guys were fantastic. They were great. They could do a lot. Mac and I did surgery, And these guys did so much. They did the minor lacerations, they did the cast work, they did the x-rays. We actually had a little small x-ray. They did so many things, it was unbelievable. And then we had Vietnamese nurses. Some of them were excellent, some of them not so much.
Where are they trained? Over there?
They were trained over there. We had a team, a husband and wife team. They were the equivalent to an RN in this country. They were very westernized, spoke pretty good English. Ba means Mrs.
Mm-hmm.
Ba Hung was my nurse, and I think Max was Ba Tom. And Ba Hung's husband, he was great. He would scrub with us and help us in surgery, or he could do X-rays. He did everything. And my medics, for some reason, named him Charlie Brown, and that's what we knew him as. It's Charlie. Charlie could do anything. So we had Vietnamese nurse anesthetists.
Mm-hmm.
That's where our anesthesia came from. Almost always ether.
Do you ever do anything mundane, like deliver babies, or?
No.
No?
Yeah, once.
Oh, just once?
The only time I did that was a lady who came in pretty close to term,
Mm-hmm.
pregnant, and she'd been shot in the abdomen,
Oh,
and with the missile going through her uterus into the baby's head. And so I delivered a stillborn that was, and had to operate on, had to do it by cesarean section. But normal delivery, no, I didn't do it.
everything you did was critical, wasn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It was
Yeah.
critical. It was, we had no blood bank. We had to try to get blood from a relative if we could. And the Vietnamese population was not geared toward donating blood, giving blood to anybody. But every now and then we could talk a relative into giving blood to use it. And our ability to type and cross-match that was not the best. But when someone is bleeding to death and almost bled out,
Yeah.
you have nothing to lose by.
Yeah. So it's literally flying by the seat of your pants,
It
wasn't it?
was absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's amazing what you can get away with, and you know if you're creative, you can. When you don't have any choice, it's amazing how if you're creative and just do the best you can get some stuff done without all of our fancy lab work that we have today.
You ever get emotionally involved with any patients or
Yes.
anything? I know it's.
Lots
You
of.
didn't know them, and they.
One of them is described in that book.
Oh, is it?
quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
A little boy, his name was Locke, L-O-C, and he came in, he was brought in at age 6. He had stepped on something, just mangled both of his legs, and not only were they mangled, he had gas gangrene, he was septic, he was about to die. And I had no choice but to do a bilateral above the knee amputation on this little 6-year-old boy. And he was a cute kid, cute as he could be, and I really got attached to him. I taught him how I actually taught him how to read a little bit, taught him a little bit of English. My mother used to send toys to him, and ship toys to him. And I hated, when I left, the CBs built a little wheelchair for him,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to get him some artificial legs, which I'm sure he outgrew. But I felt badly when I left. I felt like I was abandoning him when I left the country.
Never saw him again? I heard from him?
No. I've tried to find him, actually. If he's alive, he'd be in his 50s now.
Mm-hmm.
For a double amputee to survive in that country in that time would have been very difficult.
Yeah.
But he could still be alive, but trying to find him is like a needle in a haystack. It's hard to find.
Yeah. Well, after your years, I feel like you was leaving.
I felt badly about leaving Locke and a few others. I felt badly about leaving my nurse and Charlie Brown, Bahun and Charlie Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting people, very wonderful people. You know, we talk about true love.
Mm-hmm.
These people had 3 little boys these nurses.
Mm-hmm.
They were 2, 4, and 6 stair steps, and they saved their money as best they could, and they sent those 3 little boys to Paris to live with her sister, to live with, knowing that they would never see them again, but knowing that if they stayed in Vietnam, they would eventually get killed. Those 3 little boys, they'd be inscribed into the military, and they'd be taken into the military and probably killed. So that takes love. That's unconditional love, isn't it?
Absolutely. You come straight back, or did you stay over and
no, I came
orient it all?
No, I came back to Travis Air Force Base. That's where I left from. My date of departure and my date of return were very symbolic, very memorable in my life.
Tell me about it.
When I got on the plane in Travis Air Force Base to come to Vietnam, those transports were commercial planes. They were contracted. I don't know if you remember Braniff Airlines.
Oh yeah.
I flew over on a Braniff Airlines plane, but I remember getting on the plane. 3 seats, aisle, 3 seats. Yeah. Soldiers, all of us, going to Vietnam. And a preacher got on, said a prayer before we left, and he said after his prayer, he said, "Everybody, look at the man on your left, and look at the man on your right. One of you won't be coming back." And that's what I left with that in my mind. And I'm not sure, I never understood what was the purpose of that, but it was scary, I'll tell you. When I came back to Travis, took a...
By yourself?
No, another group.
The whole group?
Whole group.
Okay.
On another, I can't remember, I think we came back United or something, I don't know. And left Travis and took a bus to San Francisco International to get a flight to come to Birmingham where my family was. And walked into the airport, San Francisco International, and found myself surrounded by anti-war protesters who were cursing me and spitting on me. And I will never forget that. And I will remain bitter about that for a long time. I'll tell you, that's hard to forget.
So how does that make you feel about the military now? Do you have a...
Oh, no, I love and admire the military. You know, it was interesting. When we were there, they talked about, my parents would send me the newspapers. They'd be 2 weeks late, but I would get the newspapers. And there was all kinds of reports about our military over there doing drugs, and I never saw that. I never saw it. Our kids over there, our military over there, were brave. They were patriotic, and they really tried hard to do a good job. They were good. I have nothing but respect for the military. All of them. Everybody I saw, I did not see anybody that was being described at home, at least from the papers I got. And I have a lot of respect for the military.
Was there anything you'd like people to remember from this story, to take away from it?
Yeah, there is. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from Vietnam, and that is, war is frequently reported, the activities in war report about those who are killed and how many numbers, how many injured, how many killed. People don't realize war has a terrible effect on the civilian population. They are not collateral damage, they are people. They're people who have feelings, and people who get hurt. And people in that Vietnam War were hurt badly. And it was not the fault of our military, it was the fault of the war. And these injuries came from all sides. And I was impressed, by the way, with how much effort our military went through to try to avoid civilian injuries. I mean, big time. They really tried hard to avoid it. They did everything they could But in a war, it's hard to do, and people are going to get hurt. So people, I think the message that I'd like to, when there is a war, innocent civilians are going to get caught and going to get hurt, and that happens a lot.
Think about the soldiers we lose, but we forget about the civilian population very often, don't we?
We lose our good soldiers. We lose our wonderful people, just wonderful. So, like I say, I have nothing but love and respect for our military. If you've seen it written before, they gave everything they could, and some of them gave it all.
Yeah.
But I want people to understand that there's a big price that the civilian population pays, big time.